This is exactly how you reinvent yourself. See, at 17, I was broke with no experience, had a bad attitude, and I was collecting scrap metal up from the side of the road. By 21, I had a business that I owned 100% that was turning over £500,000 a year. I was shredded, reading daily, hungry for life, up and at it early, right? And I just want to just try and preference that, right? The feeling that you have as a 21-year-old making hundreds of thousands of pounds is honestly unbelievable. Okay, the amount of confidence and fire that you have getting up every day when you've gone from that to that in such a short period of time is a game changer. And by 23, I owed big money out. I was that mentally beat that I couldn't even sit and concentrate for 10 minutes. I would literally lay on the floor and look at the ceiling because I just didn't have the answers, right? I was that broke where I had to spend some time in the cold because my central heating ran out of credit. Yeah, this was where you put credit in the back of the meter at the back of the house, right? And you've got to go to the shop to fill it up. I didn't have the money to even put the heating on, okay? Now I was down to my last £1,000. The boiler broke, and the boiler were £1,000, and I couldn't buy the boiler, so I had to go cold for a little bit. Okay, and this was the worst time ever. Now at 25, I'm moving to a tropical island in a couple months. I am making clients thousands of dollars. I'm mentally a lot stronger than this, okay? A lot stronger than this. I'm not making this video as like, oh, I've made it, right? But let me tell you, I'm a lot further than this, boy. I'm a lot further than this, and I've completely reinvented myself. Now, what you'll see with this is there's a pattern. So from here to here, I reinvented myself. From here to here, I reinvented myself. And from here to here, I reinvented myself. Now, that went from negative to positive to negative to positive, okay? Because what happened here is I reinvented myself, but I reinvented myself in a negative way. Okay, and what you've got to understand is you can only act within the limits of what you believe is possible. So me at this age, at 17 years old, look, I've been an entrepreneur my entire life. I've never had a job, never took a wage off anybody, right? I started working for myself, and look, I'd love to tell you that I was one of these social media kids who, figured out the how to run Facebook ads for a company, and I was making £3,000 a month, £10,000 a month at 17, but I wasn't, right? I was collecting scrap metal, okay? I would do market stalls on a weekend, work 7 days a week, by the way. And then the coins I would collect from the market stall, when I got home, I'd go sell them on eBay, right? The special edition coins, it'd be like 50p I could sell for £2 maybe. Now, you might laugh at that, you might think that's funny, but you know what? Where I'm from and the information I had access to, well, I had access to the internet, right? But I didn't know any entrepreneurs, didn't know anybody making any money, right? So I just did what I thought I could do, what I thought wasn't a waste of time. And to be honest, as a 17-year-old kid, right? If you're earning minimum wage, £9 an hour, whatever, if you can sell something and make £2 and it takes you 15 minutes, then it's still worth it, right? Now, what you've got to understand is, okay, I knew that type of behaviour wasn't getting anywhere, right? I knew me having a bad attitude, as in negative, okay, that wasn't going to get me anywhere. I knew that being skinny, that wasn't going to get me anywhere. So I completely transformed myself. I reinvented my character, okay? And over just a short amount of time, I reinvented myself to be the type of person that I'd always dreamt of being to an extent, right? This wasn't my final self, but it was definitely a lot better than this, right? I completely reinvented my character. Now, just to sort of give you some, a bit of a picture on why I had so much self-belief here, because I never had a job, right? So I started off straight away out of college trying to make money, and I started these little hustles, right? I had low living expenses because I was still living at home, okay? I was still living with my parents, or my dad anyway. I started with nothing. I started with absolutely nothing, right? So the amount of confidence that you get from going from here to here in such a short period of time, right? Starting with nothing, no money, no finances, no connections, right? You get confident. And what this does is this solidifies your self-image and your self-belief, okay? So when I went from here to here by 21, like me at 21, I'm like, right, I'm gonna be a fucking millionaire at 25. Guaranteed. Like this trajectory I was on, guaranteed. I believed it. Yeah, I 100% believed it. I would wake up, I'd get up out of bed at 6 a.m. and fucking straight out of bed, sharp all day long, ready to go all day long, happy, successful, winning. Okay, everything was easy in my life. Every single thing I tried to do was easy in my life because I saw myself as a winner, right? I reinvented myself as a winner, okay? And because I went from skinny to muscly, right? Because I went from broke to getting seriously paid, because I went from no experience to having a lot of experience, because I went from no connections to a large social circle and rich friends, because I went from no assets to having £400,000 in assets and a business turning over this amount, right? I had a hunger for life. I could travel all over the world. I had rich friends, right? I read on a daily basis. I meditated on a daily basis. All my habits were in check, okay? I invented this character. I reinvented this character, okay? All from what I saw, right? I completely reinvented myself. Now, what you'd think is, by me being 23 and losing everything, all my confidence, losing my friends, mentally just beat down, right, big time, being weak. I got a little bit fat, skinny, I lost a load of gains, and I was just negative about everything. I had a negative mindset and a negative attitude. Well, what you'd have thought is, with someone having this much experience, this, right, getting out of this situation would be a lot easier, but it wasn't. So how is it that a 17-year-old kid that's broke with no experience, a bad attitude, skinny, no connections, no assets, right, a fresh slate, okay, how is it that that guy can find it easier to get to this favourable position, but this guy with years of experience, hundreds of £1,000s in sale, all the connections, right, how come he found it so hard, right? And that all comes down to self-image. Okay, now there's a few things that I had to do in order to change my self-image, okay? And this time, from getting from here to here, it was a lot harder. A lot harder. And this is what a lot of people are actually trapped in. Now, it was frustrating because I had all the answers. I had the information, I had the experience, I knew what to do. But I'd wake up and I'd try every single day and I just couldn't seem to put it together, right? And it was frustrating because the more I learned, the more time I spent on it. It's like I was going and making the movements and I was doing what I knew I needed to do, but I just wasn't getting anywhere. I felt like I wasn't getting anywhere. Now, the reason for that is, I'll be honest with you, my life was so fucked. There was a few external things that happened. Okay, I got hacked, robbed, scammed, betrayed by family, owed big money out. I had floods, right, that destroyed loads of stock. I spent many months in isolation dealing with all this at once. I lost quite a few good friends from it. And yeah, it's like every area in my life was bad at the same time. Now, the reason why I'm telling you that is because now all of a sudden, all these problems that were so big in my life, right? Me focusing on daily action, anything that I did wasn't going to fix any of the issues. What I felt like was, I felt like I'd worked all this time to get all this knowledge together, all this time to get these finances, and all this time to completely develop my attitude, develop my character, develop myself physically, right? I spent all this time and money on self-development, and I felt like I lost it all, right? I felt like I lost it all. So it's a confusing time when you've gone maximum effort at something for many years, and you've found yourself in a position where it's all sort of, well, you've lost everything, okay? You've just lost everything. It's mentally, it's hard to get out of. So at this stage in my life, I was disabled by it. I was disabled by it. It got on top of me, it did. It really did. I was disabled by it. So I had to reinvent myself, okay? Now, the way that I was able to reinvent myself is as follows. There's a few things that I've got here. Now, the reason why I'm saying your self-image is the most important part, okay? So look, if I could go back to this guy, I knew what path I was on. My self-image by this point was, I am ready to go. I can do anything. And I genuinely believed I did anything. I walked through life with confidence and ease. I had clout from my business, right? I was making real money. I was in good shape. I was learning. I had a good office. I had lots of assets, okay? And I built it all myself, yeah? So my self-image was great. Now at this point, because I had so many things go wrong in my life, okay? My self-image completely changed. I stopped believing that I could do anything in my life, yeah? And I started believing I couldn't do anything. To the point where I'd forget to brush my teeth in the morning, right? I'd be that stressed and not know what to do. I'd just look at the ceiling. I'd lay on the floor and look at the ceiling, overwhelmed, right? I was addicted to ADHD medication. I was flipping doing nicotine pouches all day till my gums started receding. I was addicted to caffeine. I couldn't sleep at night. I was a mess. So how does somebody go from all of the if I'm being honest, this is the top 1% 21-year-old, right? And listen, I'm not one of these private school kids with a millionaire dad, okay? I'm from Bradford and I'm self-made, yeah? Just to put it proper. So this was all my doing, okay? So how does somebody go from that to going in a state like this, right? And it's all down to self-image. So as soon as I took care of my self-image, right, and I fixed my self-image, that is when I was able to get the ball start moving again. So this is what I did. First things first, six-pack, okay? Now, I don't mean a literal six-pack, okay, even though that's what I put, but I did go get a literal six-pack, right? Now, the reason why that's important is because you need a challenge, okay? You need a challenge. Now, getting in shape, right? That's a good one because it's a physical thing. It's a visual thing. You can see it, right? If you go and get yourself a six-pack, okay, then you've actually done something and proved to yourself you can do something. And it's not that hard, okay? So set yourself a target, right? Because all of a sudden, you're going to start seeing yourself as a more successful person, right? Go get shredded, right? Or maybe it's go put on weight, or maybe it's just lose a stone or whatever, right? Set yourself a physical target, because once you see that, the daily action is going to give you the self-belief, and once you've got the actual result, you're going to start seeing yourself differently, right? Because the whole thing with changing your self-image, it's about accumulating wins, okay? So this guy had no experience, didn't know what to do at all, okay? But the reason why I was able to get to this is because I just kept trying daily and I started accumulating wins, right? I started accumulating small wins. So when my mind was destroyed and I had nowhere to go, no one to turn to, I had to start accumulating wins again. Now, let me tell you something about getting a six-pack. It's free, motherfucker. Yeah, you can go get one for free. Just eat less. You're actually going to make more money when you get a six-pack. So if you're broke, go get a six-pack. Go on a walk, eat less food, right? That's it. But you're going to get a lot from this, okay? Now, the next thing is goal setting, right? You've got to start goal setting like a motherfucker, okay? Now, look, I wish I could go a bit more in depth in this situation. I wish you could really understand like what level I was at here, right? This was a dark time in my life, real dark time in my life, right? Now, listen, when it comes to losing everything and when you're at true rock bottom, you might as well set fucking goals that are that ridiculous, okay, that nothing in your life even indicates you're ever going to get there. Because if you ever find yourself in such a bad situation like I did, right, the likelihood you're going to get out of it, you've got the same likelihood of getting them goals anyway, bro. You really do. You really do, right? So set big goals, right? Now, what people do with goal setting, they go, I want to be rich. No. You don't just set a goal as I want this, I want that. You need to be very specific. So look, I've just told you that now I'm making client-sized thousands of dollars. I've got absolutely shredded. I'm mentally strong. I'm moving to a different country. Well, one of my goals at this stage, right, was move to a different country. Okay, now it's booked. I'm going, right? One of my goals at this stage was get shredded. Get a coach. Got a coach. Then I got shredded, right? One of the other goals was make YouTube videos and get this service. Now I'm making clients thousands of dollars and earning thousands in return, okay? So I had to set these goals at this stage, at my lowest, right? But when you set a goal, an actionable goal, you have to do the daily action, right? Now that's going to bring me into the next point, daily action. Okay, so this right here, if you're trying to reinvent yourself, right? This is going to take you from working on your own to the same as having 6 people, right? This is a diary. Now, this is not just any diary. This is a legend planner. Now, the reason why you need a planner is because you can be accountable for what you're doing and the daily action. The only thing you have control over is the daily action. Now, when I was in this, I didn't understand that, right? I didn't understand that because I was focused on the bigger pictures, all the areas going wrong in my life, right? But the only thing you have control over is the daily action, right? What are you doing today? Now, if you get yourself a real planner and you start planning every single day, okay, that is where you're going to learn properly. I use that planner to make my first million from this stage, right? Collecting scrap metal. I used a planner. Okay? So I started goal setting properly and taking daily actions. Now the daily action aligns with the goal, right? So if you want to get shredded, you set the goal of getting shredded, right? And then the daily action is eat less food, do cardio. But set the goals and set the daily action. Break it down into steps. Now your focus isn't on the goal, your focus is on the daily action that leads to the goal, okay? Very important stuff you should understand, very, very important. Now, the next thing is self-talk. This is one of the biggest keys ever right here, okay? Now, one thing you've got to understand about having a negative mindset and attitude is it's very sticky. Yeah, it's very sticky. You get used to doing it, okay? Now, when you get used to a negative attitude, guess what? You start talking about your problem. If you're losing right now, yeah, and you start talking about the fact that you're losing, and you start talking like a loser, you start telling people you're losing, guess what? You're a fucking loser, okay? Now, if you're a winner, but you're in a losing situation, but you're positive, but you talk about winning, but you only chill with winners, then guess what? You're not a loser, right? But by you telling everyone your problems, and by you constantly talking about your problems, and by you always bringing them into existence, your self-talk is going to align with the thing that you don't want to be, because you're always thinking loser, loser, loser. I started saying, I lost everything, I lost everything, I lost everything, that's what you're putting into your mind. I lost. Now, what I had to do was I had to start talking to myself differently. I had to change my self-talk. So instead of I lost, I gained. And what you might be thinking, what the fuck did you gain losing all that? I gained experience, gained wisdom, gained knowledge. Now all of a sudden, I'm focused on positive things. Yeah, major key right there. So I had to change my self-talk. I had to completely change these things that I was saying. I had to change the things that I was talking about, right? I had to stop talking negative. I had to stop being negative. And listen, right now, I don't give a fuck if I get shot yesterday and my dog dies this morning, right? You ask me how I'm doing, I say fucking fantastic. Amazing. Could not be better. Could not be better, and I'm smiling, right? Because I'm not taking on the identity. I've got to change my identity, right? If I'm taking on the identity of someone that's losing, then I'm going to start talking about losing, right? If I want to take on the identity as a winner, then I'm going to start talking about winning, right? This guy got to it straight away, saw a little bit of success, and he saw himself as a winner. And guess what happened a few years later? He started winning. Started winning at a high level because he genuinely believed it and he took action on it, right? This guy didn't do that. Right? Yet he had all of the extra experience, right? This guy should have blown that guy completely out the water, right? They both started with the same amount of money. Yeah. And this guy couldn't do it. 5 years older, 5 years extra experience, and he got beat. Right? Because it's all about self-image. And this is me. This is the same fucking person. Yeah? This is both me. And me at 17, I was borderline retarded. Yeah? With a bad attitude, bro. Right? But I accumulated some small wins in one area, and I changed how I viewed myself. I viewed myself differently. Okay? I viewed myself differently, my self-image. And at the time, I didn't know this, right? So now, my job is to change my self-image. I need to get my self-image back to what these guys believed. These guys are also me, by the way. Understand that? So self-talk is one. Now, if you want to level it up, I mean, I shouldn't really be showing you this. This is a bit private, but look. Alchemy of self, okay? You can completely change your outlook on life. Ever since I started using this, I've been complimented around my attitude's changed. I feel like I know my goals more at the top of my mind. And this is basically where you're writing out what you want to be and affirmations every single day and a bit of a mood board. I'm not going to show you that though. But now I'm constantly training my mind. Now my focus is on changing my self-image, right? I'm changing my self-image to be the person that I want to be. That's how you reinvent yourself. You need to change how you view yourself, because if you don't see it up here, yeah, it will never materialize. Okay. Now look, I'm taking this a step further. The reason why I'm moving country, right, is because I'm trying to change again. I'm trying to reinvent myself again to a whole new level, right? To a whole new level. I'm gonna start fighting. I'm gonna work on my online business. Okay. I want to reinvent myself again. This is a cycle that you do not stop going through this cycle, right? And it's unbelievable what you can do when you really start thinking about yourself differently. But these are the steps that you need to do. So let's just get back on this, right? If you want a fast track, easy to do. If you want to start winning quickly, right? The quickest way to do it, set a small little goal, like get a six pack. Ideally just get a six pack, right? Everybody should be shredded, really. Set a goal, okay, big goal. For me, one of the goals was moving to a different country. So I set that goal, I set the action steps, I took the daily action, right, on that goal. I started seeing myself a little bit differently with that. Then I started talking to myself differently. I started reprogramming my mind to the character that I wanted to be, fixed my fucking attitude, and then I moved. And then now I've reached that goal, okay? You just keep following this process with different areas of your life, and you'll win. That's it. There's a video coming up right about here. Take a watch. Also, click the first link in the description. That's the next video in a bit.